Hello and welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Fara Sax. Mark your calendars. November 23rd is the Miami-Dade Heart Walk, hosted by the American Heart Association, bringing the community together to support heart health and raising money for life-saving research. Today, I am joined by two of its wonderful leaders, South Florida Board President, as well as the General Intervention Cardiologist with HCA Heart Mercy Hospital located in Miami. Dr. Hafizullah and Dr. Haroni, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. We're so happy to be here.
Well, the Heart Walk is right around the corner. Can you tell me a little bit about what the community has in store for itself and for what we will experience for a really worthwhile event?
I'm happy to start talking about it,
Please.
Dr. Harani. So it's Saturday, November 23rd, right at FIU at the Mark Lawn. We're expecting hundreds of supporters to come out. We're celebrating survivors. We're hearing stories of those who've not only survived a heart attack or a cardiac arrest, but we're having families come together. And together we're joining forces to be that relentless force for a world of healthier lives.
And it looks like there's going to be a lot of events happening within the event. There's going to be CPR demos. There's going to be heart pressure screening. I mean, those are really, really important things. So maybe, Dr. Haroni, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, there's going to be a lot of things to do that day. HCA is leading the warm-up session of the Heart Walk. There's also going to be a lot of other activities. There's going to be a place to check your blood pressure, place to learn CPR. There's going to be dogs walking. There's going to be activities for the kids. So there's going to be a lot to choose from that day.
And this is different than a different location than it's been in the past. It's going to be at the FIU right on 8th Street. So it's a little bit different, but the same ideas and the same mission it has in mind. Can we talk about the theme this year? I want to save lives. What is that about? Tell me how the theme has changed and morphed into this nation of lifesavers.
Absolutely. So our focus absolutely this year organization-wide is looking at a nation of lifesavers, converting bystanders into lifesavers through CPR. And right there at the Heart Walk, we have educational resources, we have live demonstrations, we've got just a slew of activities ongoing so you can immerse yourself and feel educated and empowered to become CPR trained and then be able to act if somebody were to have a cardiac arrest.
And it's a fun event. But Dr. Haroni, there is a lot of reason, heart, literally, behind why you're doing this. Talk a little bit about what some of things that the community might not know about when someone is facing a heart attack, might have a heart attack, some of the opportunities that they didn't have available when they were maybe younger, or how technology has changed.
Well, it's a relevant topic because the leading cause of death in the United States is coronary heart disease among men and women combined. As Dr. Hafizullah mentions, the focus this year is on a nation of lifesavers, and part of the events for that day at the Heart Walk is going to be learning CPR, as I mentioned. Learning CPR over the holidays is especially important because we know that 9 out of 10 people who suffer a cardiac arrest outside the hospital do not survive. And the holidays, when we're all together as families, might present a special opportunity to save a loved one from a cardiac arrest. Knowing CPR makes all the difference between survival and not if we're going to make it to the hospital in those cases.
Why does it raise during that time? I was reading December 25th is a big day to have a heart attack. Why is that? Is it because we've eaten too much? Is it the stress of family? What's going on during that time?
Yeah, the holidays are they always see a spike in coronary-related deaths and also hospitalizations for other heart conditions, because the things we do during the holidays sometimes are a little bit stressful for the cardiovascular system. Emotional stress, first of all, which, as we know, may be different in the holidays, other times of years, is linked to acute events, acute major adverse cardiac events, and also lifestyle changes in terms of diet and exercise, even acutely, are related to adverse outcomes in the short term. Increased intake of salt, increased intake of alcohol, eating just an increased caloric load, and decreased physical activity can all produce increased risk during the holiday season.
Is one gender more apt to have a heart attack?
We see it across the board. And as Dr. Harani was saying, depending on how you live, we look at the different pillars on the Life's Essential 8 through the American Heart Association. So what we eat is important from when you're very young. When you're a baby growing up, you can actually have changes happening within your arterial system. Movement is important as well. Avoiding smoking, making sure that we don't drink a lot of alcohol, and ensuring that we check our blood pressures, cholesterol, blood sugars as well. All of those pieces combined with good sleep and stress reduction are all pillars in helping you to stay healthy.
And you're internal medicine
Yes.
doctor, and you work very closely with a cardiologist, and you guys work together.
We work at separate institutions, but we work as a team.
But as a team of just
Absolutely.
internal medicine and a cardiologist,
Yes.
what do you see as the crossover between both of your professions and practice that you see as a consistent marker for a heart problem? Is it she's 40 years old and never had a problem, or all of a sudden she's having panic attacks, what she thought was panic attacks, and women are not taken as serious as men? Is that correct in my assumption?
Yes, and there's a focus nationwide on trying to remind people that women, almost as much as men, suffer from coronary heart disease, and that it's still, if you even take divided by gender, one of the top causes of death among women. You mentioned the partnership between internal medicine and cardiology, and it's super important for patients to be co-managed by a dedicated cardiologist, but also by an internist, because heart disease, the most common causes do not happen on their own in this country, but are a result of metabolic issues like prediabetes and diabetes, obesity, hypertension, even smoking as a general medical issue. All of these things are best treated early by an internist. If by the time they cause cardiac disease, a cardiologist needs to be involved, then the risk factors still need to be managed by an internist. So it's important for people to keep seeing both specialties.
Absolutely, and there's a very fine line into disease and is it something else, and you have to really be attuned to your patient and knowing what's what. Is it anxiety? Are they having a full-fledged heart attack?
And Farah, just to Dr. Harani's point and what you were describing too, it's important to treat each patient individually. We have unique components that may contribute to heart disease or stroke that we really, as a team, as a large healthcare team, will really have to look at that in a 360 view for each patient to better assess their risk to prevent these diseases from even occurring and to ensure that they have long, healthy, quality lives.
Absolutely. And we're going to jump to some video. We're going to talk about these survivors, the I Walk to Save Lives in Nation of Lifesavers. And some of these have been saved themselves. So I really look forward to the video. Can you roll?
I walked today because my friends wanted to come out and show support for me and for anyone else that's ever had some sort of heart issue, and show them to keep pushing.
I walk in memory of my mother.
Today I walked because I actually survived. I was born with a congenital heart defect. And at 41, they told me that I was terminally ill and I needed a heart and liver transplant. And 43, I got it, and at 45, here I am.
I walked today because my sister.
Walking for the American Heart Association because they're going to help us save lives in the future.
Well, we walked for her. This is Olivia, and she had heart surgery when she was 2 weeks old, and now she's doing great, super strong.
100% better. I walked today in support of my mother, so along with her and the other individuals across the country, I'm walking, I'm supporting you guys here to support heart health.
I walked to raise awareness around spontaneous coronary artery dissection, which is what happened to me and led to a heart attack. I almost lost my life. I'm also walking for my son, who's 2 years old, who's about to have heart surgery on Friday. It could happen to anybody, so we're here to raise awareness and come together as a community so we can have healthier, longer lives.
It's overwhelming. When we found out his diagnosis, we got connected with the heart family and the heart community, and we're just the most amazing people, the most amazing support community. We walked for our son Grady, who is a hypoplastic left heart warrior. Woo!
It makes me feel great when I see my kids that I've operated on come back and have kids of their own. And that's a real blessing, and that's why we do what we do.
We walk for you!
Great work, and what an ability to really enjoy life after you've gone through something like this, and to really be celebrated. Talk about that. 9 out of 10 people who suffer heart attacks don't leave the hospital. You said that earlier. And how are events like this, the Heart Walk, make people feel more prepared should they encounter something like this, and to save lives if they're ever put in this position?
Well, even practicing CPR just a handful of times makes people a lot more confident if that were to ever occur in their house or to their loved one. There are many changes over the past decades in public health recommendations for CPR. We have now hands-only CPR. The classic CPR depiction in the movies, for example, many years ago might have shown artificial breathing measures like mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. That's no longer recommended by the American Heart Association, and now we have hands-only CPR, which really depends on a simple chest compression at a certain rate. And if people can master it once or twice, then they're much more likely to be able to do it in the real event that happens.
You wanted to add? I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. You know, Dr. Harani absolutely mentioned it's very nice and simple to do. Think of a fast beat song in your head. You're placing your hands one over the other right in the middle of someone's chest, and 100 to 120 beats a minute. Just keep pushing down on their chest. You become that person's heartbeat in that moment, saving their lives until EMS arrives.
And how long usually is the average time until the EMS arrives?
It varies depending on where you are, but if you have a group of people around you, make sure that you talk out loud as you are getting that CPR done and have somebody switch out with you. But it's important to continue that CPR until first responders get there.
And we talked about this. I had a client who had a widowmaker, and he survived, but they did chest compressions for 42 minutes, and he survived. So there's something to be said to doing those chest compressions until it
does make
sinus
all
rhythm
the
happens.
difference.
It does.
I think many of us have personal experience, or maybe 1 degree removed, with people whose lives have been saved by CPR. I know in my family as well, there has been someone who made a big difference and allowed a family member to survive based on the knowledge of CPR. Without CPR, it's very difficult for the body to have an absence of circulation while EMS is on their way. But with CPR, there's a much better chance.
Yeah, I totally believe CPR, and it's changed. It seemed like Annie, is she still involved? Is she still part of it?
Annie, that old broad, yeah.
That old broad, you're going to say?
I was thinking more, that Dr. Hafizula's point is exactly right about the fast tempo song. One classic that I was always told was the Bee Gees Staying
That's right.
Alive.
Yes, exactly.
Did you heard that too?
Yes.
Oh my God! Isn't that ironic? Isn't that ironic? Oh my God! Well, it seems like it's going to keep people healthier, and it's alive if they can do this.
Yeah, you can double or triple someone's chances of survival if you started CPR right away once they collapse.
So if one is brisk walking or running, does that increase their chances of having a heart attack? Well, that was a question that was asked by an audience member. They just put that in.
It's an issue that I have to word carefully. Exercise is life-saving, and public policy on preventing heart disease, and hopefully one day making it not the leading cause of death in the United States, is in large part based on getting people to exercise 150 minutes a week.
That's right.
So on a chronic basis, exercise is certainly life-saving. In the moment, if a patient is, for example, following with a cardiologist for a serious advanced cardiac condition, then there may be restrictions on exercise because it's potentially possible that someone with advanced disease could put themselves at risk by walking too fast for too long. And that would be important to consult with your doctors.
Absolutely.
And you are the board director of this event. You're still smiling.
I tell you, we have to keep the momentum going, right? Heart disease is still the #1 leading cause of death here in the U.S. Now, we've made a lot of headway in the last 100 years. We've been able to slash our heart disease deaths in half. Still #1 as far as a leading cause, and stroke is still #5. So it takes all of us coming
They're not
together.
the same. They're not really the same. If you
They're
have
not
a
the
stroke,
same.
it doesn't have to be a heart event.
Correct.
And
Exactly.
if it's a heart event, it doesn't have to be a stroke.
Exactly. Either way, your vascular system is affected. And so if we can dial back and look at those pillars of health that we talked about earlier and really try to prevent this from happening, or pay attention, of course, to what's happening within your body, go in for help, use the resources that we have available. We not only at the Heart Walks, but online, we have a multitude of resources for people to learn about staying healthy, being well, but also looking for red flags, things that may make you want to go in and get checked.
So, Dr. Hafizuli, what is some of the red flags?
So we talked about you might feel tired. You may not even have chest pain, but you might feel a little bit more tired. You mentioned even feeling a feeling of anxiety or feeling your heart racing and not understanding why that might be persisting. There are a variety of symptoms that can play out depending on who you are and any other health conditions you may or may not have. If ever in doubt, or if you feel as though you have a family history or you're under a lot of stress, just get checked. Just get assessed, because this can save your life in the long run.
Yeah, that's important to mention that understanding your own body is a big part of identifying if you might have a problem yourself as a patient. That's part of the reason why I love to continue to encourage my heart patients to continue to exercise as long as it's safe in that particular person. Because heart disease really does rear its ugly head first during physical activity. So if one really doesn't ever do any physical activity, it may be too late by the time there's a significant symptom while they're at rest. So it's really a form of self-diagnosis, a form of self-study to keep exercising and let your doctor know if you start to have issues during that.
Exactly.
I was privy, or I was witness, I should say, to two people that were having a heart attack in my office here. And it was the same. It was like their eyes glazed over a little bit. They started feeling anxious, but they couldn't articulate the anxiety. They started feeling pain in their back. And it was just like, it was weird to watch, but it wasn't the people that I knew them to be. And so it was early, and I said to my boss, we got to get them somewhere. And it was really important. Down the street is a hospital, but it was weird to see that, and I think that's what we all have to be really cognizant of and really aware of, the differences that happen in our friends and our family when this is happening, this episode.
That's right. And through the Nation of Lifesavers initiative, our goal is to have at least one person in every household feel confident and have the resources, just not only educationally, but they know how to do that CPR. Just at least one person in every household.
So why don't you talk about the nations?
Sure, absolutely.
A little bit more in detail.
So this is our organization-wide focus now, is to really ensure that we have as many people trained in hands-only CPR as possible. Because as we were mentioning earlier, some of the stats, 9 out of 10 people who have a cardiac arrest outside of a hospital setting don't make it. But if you know CPR and you could do hands-on CPR and you can do that immediately as somebody collapses, you double or triple their chances of surviving. And so the process is very simple, 2 different things. First, if you feel somebody's collapsed or they're in cardiac arrest, call 911 first. Second, you start to immediately engage in hands-on CPR. One hand over the other, both hands over the middle of their chest, 100 to 120 beats a minute, and continuously until those first responders get there. And then, of course, if you have an AED nearby, feel free to use it. It has some prompts on it, very easy and quick to use. So those can save someone's life. You can be their heartbeat that will allow them to not only have quality of life, but to live.
And what brings us here today is this beautiful heart walk. It's to raise money for awareness that we're sharing right now through this interview. But
I walk today because
more about it. Talk about what that means for the community and where we can really sink our teeth in to learn more and to commemorate those beautiful souls that have either left us or that are thriving after a heart attack.
Yeah, I think the Heart Walk is a perfect example of how we as a community can prevent heart disease. The Heart Walk has so many components. It has the component of course, exercise, but also the component of community and being with each other.
And it looks so special. This is a different venue, a different location, but again, the same idea and the same mission.
Right, the component of eating healthy, eating foods that help you maintain and increase your energy and don't make you sleepy or over full. All of these things, it's been shown time and again that some of the way that we live, our stress levels and our sense of belonging in a community has a direct effect on our risk of heart disease. There's a special study that was conducted alongside the Framingham study, one of the initial studies for cardiovascular disease, that studied, for example, communities of people who had moved from another country, who had similar backgrounds in genetics. Half of them moved to a larger metropolis where they were isolated from each other a little more, and the other half moved to a smaller community where they maintained a way of life more similar to what they had been experiencing before they left the other place. And it was shown that heart disease, despite the same diet and the same exercise habits, was drastically reduced just by that increased access to their neighbors and their way of life and their community.
So community really talks and speaks volumes to one's mental and physical health.
Just like the Heart Walk will certainly show people. You see pictures of people being together and low stress.
That's it.
Absolutely. And there are teams?
Yeah,
So
very much.
is it too late to sign up for a team?
Not at
No,
all. Please.
time to do it.
Right up till the event. You can join a team, you can bring a team, you can just come to the event. But those social connections, those positive social connections and that camaraderie is powerful, and absolutely it can reduce your risk of having a heart event.
And where can listeners go if they want more information? We're going to show it on the screen as well if they want to be either donate or they want to become part of it or to walk and just be part of this wonderful community. It's right in our neighborhood at FIU on 8th Street, South Campus. So it's going to be fun. Where would they go? Let's see. We have it up here. Coming on up, and they can reach out at, for more information, you go to miamidadeheartwalk.org. In our final moments together, tell me something more. Tell me something about the walk, why you got involved with it.
So it's really interesting. I started off with the American Medical Women's Association in their 100-year anniversary. And then my work as an internist on disease prevention.
There's no just about this.
I tell you, we're looking at women's health. And we're looking, as you mentioned earlier, women are often undiagnosed. Or they're the caretakers in their house. They take care of everyone else except themselves. So that sort of maintained a very strong thread in my career. And then, of course, working with the American Heart was just a natural synergistic fit. They were very much involved in the health equity initiatives that I was involved in with the Caribbean community and just with the greater South Florida community. And so coming in was just a natural progression. It not only amplified our joint missions, but we were now making a wider impact together. So I'm just excited again to expand that team and to allow all of us to come together in this shared mission to really make a very big positive difference.
And how does ACH fit into the equation here at Mercy?
Well, HCA has always been heavily invested in public health initiatives like this, preventative care, and really has always welcomed patients to participate in events like this and has supported when they can. For example, their involvement in the Heart Walk warm-up, we're all looking forward to.
Tell me the most incredible story of saving a young life that you've experienced, Dr. Haroni.
Well, on a daily basis, when I go to work every day, I think there's some story. But if I had to really think about a younger patient, it would be one that actually was just a couple of months ago, without breaking any confidentiality, but a really nice young man, only 38 years old, a police officer actually, and no one suspected that heart disease could be the matter because of his young age. Despite that, after a few days really of suffering from kind of odd symptoms, like in terms of what you brought up, sometimes it's not always easy to recognize.
Very,
as you know, finally was able to come to the hospital and seek care from our team. And I play a role within that team. I think the interesting parts of the stories are always how people came to recognize that they were having a heart condition. How did they finally realize that this wasn't normal? So I've been thinking of that person at least when I'm thinking about the Heart Walk and what we can do to help other people.
That's right.
And since you've been on board and you see and you experience day to day in your work, in your dealing with all of us, really helping, saving lives, what was the most touching story or important story?
There are so many stories, and each one is very vivid in my mind. And, but I actually had to do CPR on my own mother who collapsed, so just knowing the importance of not only knowing what to do in that moment, but having the confidence and the surroundings, even if you're trained in healthcare, even if you're not trained in healthcare at all, just the process of us creating a nation of lifesavers allows all of us to know that we are literally going to be very important in our neighbors, our friends' lives, anybody in any environment, wherever you are, you could be that heartbeat to save somebody's life. Just remembering those stories just gives me that push to keep going.
And I think we, the general public, forget that you are human. And sometimes, like you just said about your mother, you didn't know that you were going to have to wear the doctor hat, but you're the daughter as well. And how you move through that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that the situation you're in, sometimes it can be very different the way you behave. As doctors, we're used to working within an office or a hospital or an academic medical center, as you describe, and when we're in that situation, we have to keep our minds focused on two things that we just hope everyone does, regardless of their level of training, and we hope the Heart Walk reinforces that.
Absolutely.
Calling 911 immediately, and then starting hands-only CPR. And if we can get that message out there, then maybe we can help save a few lives.
And I hope we did that today. And anything you want to add to that? Anything that we've shared or want to share?
We just want to invite everybody out there to the Heart Walk. Come on together, keep walking, stay healthy, and we're with you. We're in it together.
And it's beautiful because we're walking, getting some sunshine, sweating a little bit, and making money for a worthwhile cause.
Yes.
Your heart.
The American Heart Association has always been a great shepherd in this country for cardiovascular health, and it's events like these that continue to support it.
And I know you have Heart Month, you have Cancer Month, you have this month, that, but it's 365 days, 52 weeks in a year that your heart needs attention.
Exactly. That's right.
So thank you. And I thank you so much for being with me today. And if you want more information, you go to their website at miamidadewalk.org, miamidadeheartwalk.org. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. I'm Fara Sax. Have a wonderful day. And a special thank you to Julian Chang, who now has a second location in Pinecrest. Go visit his boutique for all your clothing and accessory needs.